launch of Soyuz TMA-16M will return 3 veteran spaceflyers to the International Space Station, with 2 of them embarking on the first-ever year-long mission to this vehicle. One-year expedition crew member, retired U.S. Navy Captain Scott Kelly, has accumulated 180 days in space during 3 missions. Kelly piloted Space Shuttle Discovery's service mission to the Hubble Space Telescope in 1999. He served as the commander of the STS-118 mission to the space station, and he spent over 5 months aboard the International Space Station as an Expedition 25 flight engineer and as Expedition 26 commander. Kelly will again serve as station commander during Expeditions 45 and 46. Kelly's one-year crewmate, Mikhail Kornienko of the Russian Federal Space Agency, was selected as a cosmonaut in 1998. He spent 176 days in space as an International Space Station flight engineer on Expeditions 23 and 24. He has 6 hours and 43 minutes of spacewalking time to his credit. Soyuz commander Gennady Padalka's first journey to space took him to the Russian space station Mir in 1998. He then visited the International Space Station in 2004, 2009, and 2012, serving as commander on each of his missions. He'll assume the role of station commander again during Expedition 44. Padalka has spent 710 days on orbit and has conducted 7 spacewalks. Padalka will return to Earth in September 2015, with Kelly and Kornienko remaining on board the station until March 2016.
Welcome to the Johnson Space Center. We are joined today by Scott, Mikhail, and Gennady. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. It's an exciting time. We are weeks out from your departure to go overseas for your final training, your exams, and then your launch on March 27th. So let's just start with the big question. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling great. I think my fellow crew members are feeling great as well, and we're excited to be here finishing up our U.S. training, and then for me, off to Germany for a week, for the cosmonauts back to Russia for a final 6 weeks of training before launch.
Gotcha. Well, anything else to add?
Прекрасный экипаж. Мы проверили друг друга еще, будучи на этапе дублирования, поэтому мы готовы к полету.
This is a great crew. We tested ourselves when we were training as the backup crew, and we are ready for the flight.
Right.
And I'd like to add, too, that this is called the one-year crew news conference. But one of us is not staying for a year, but he's the most important guy on the flight because he's our Soyuz commander. He's our space station commander for Expedition 44. And on this flight, he'll break the record for the longest duration of any human ever to stay in space.
Absolutely. Definitely a good thing to note. A mission like this is quite an undertaking, technically, physically, personally. Can you just start by telling us a little bit about why you accepted a mission like this?
Well, for me, Nicole, it was not something I accepted at first. It was something that we discussed in our office. There were a number of people that were qualified for it. And at first, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't all that interested because, I guess mostly because I hadn't given it a whole lot of thought. And it was soon after I had gotten back from my last flight. So the difficulty of living and working in space for a long period was still kind of fresh in my mind, but I wanted to fly in space again. And, after giving it some thought, I thought that would be a lot like what I did the last time on my previous expedition flight. So, after mulling it over, talking to my family, friends, girlfriend, and I decided that the challenges that staying in space for a whole year presented was appealing to me, even considering the sacrifices that you have to go in and your family goes in for to do that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and it is such a commitment on your half, all of you, but especially in your case, and I imagine to some degree just the greater purpose of the mission also was a part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So each ISS crew works on about 200 different experiments during expedition. You're going to be up there obviously twice the time. You'll be touching on even hundreds more of experiments and research. I know you don't know the details about all of them, but are there at this point some experiments that have personally resonated with you and that you think really demonstrate why this work is so important?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of experiments that go on the space station in all different disciplines. You know, we like to say we work off the Earth for the Earth, and that's the purpose of the space station. There's generally three different kinds of investigations are in three different general categories. The cases research that we do, that's really how to improve life on Earth. The NASA research that we do, that's generally exploration based, you know, how to get us, you know, out of low Earth orbit, you know, to the moon, perhaps an asteroid, and Mars someday, and even further. And then the international partnership research that's done. So it's kind of separated into three general categories. And within those categories, especially the stuff that's for the Earth, is, you know, further separated into the some life science stuff for, you know, developing new kinds of pharmaceuticals, new ways to understand disease using stem cell research, protein crystals, those kind of things, material sciences, combustion science, observing the Earth, those kind of things. And the exploration stuff is more, you know, how do we live in, work in space for longer periods of time? How does our body react to that? How do we mitigate the various types of risks we have? Now, to answer your more specific question, what of that research excites me? You know, I think the human research part of it does. There's some other experiments that we do, like you know, the Japanese have this experiment that kind of fascinates me, and its name escapes me right now, but it's, you know, how do we understand better how plants seek water? You know, generally the largest component is based on gravity. Roots grow, you know, towards the center of the Earth, but there is a component that seeks water, and if you can genetically engineer a plant to seek water versus go in the direction of the gravity flow, that has serious, you know, international implications for, you know, can we grow food for, you know, what countries are able to survive on limited amount of water, things like that. But having said all that, as a test pilot and an engineer, what fascinates me is the space station as a whole experiment. You know, we built this space station as an international partnership, connecting these modules in low Earth orbit. In some cases, some of these were never connected before on Earth, traveling around the Earth at 17,500,000 miles per hour in a vacuum, extremes of temperature and pressure, building this facility that allows us to understand how to operate for long periods of time in space to allow us someday to go to Mars.
Right, absolutely. Let's see, we were reminded just yesterday how serious the space exploration business is. There was an emergency scenario on board. The crew had to do their emergency procedures, go get in a safe location on the International Space Station. It was a great testament to the training that the crew has had, the teamwork with the flight control team, and all of that worked out. But as you know, near your mission, what thoughts do you have on that, and what type of training have you had to prepare you for those types of things? For any of you?
Gennady?
Дело в том, что очень большая часть подготовки проходит как раз по отработке аварийных процедур.
The thing is that a large portion of the preparation has to do with running through emergency scenarios.
Особенно такие критические ситуации, как разгерметизация, пожар, либо, значит, выброс аммиака.
In particular, it includes depressurization and fire and ammonia leaks.
И инструктора в центре подготовки, инструктора здесь в НАСА, они очень профессиональны.
The instructors at the GCTC in Russia and here at NASA, they're very professional.
У них очень большой опыт по парированию подобных ситуаций.
They are very experienced in handling these situations.
И у нас, кстати, будет квалификационный экзамен на следующей неделе для нашего экипажа по парированию вот подобных ситуаций.
And our qualification exams will be next week for our crew for handling these off-nominal situations.
Мы готовы.
We're ready.
Yeah. I was just going to add, those are two big sessions that you have just coming up next week. Two big, all crew, fully integrated with the team. So that's one of the final things you do.
Yeah, so we have a great instructor team. We have a great operational team all around the world. You know, not only in the U.S. and Russia, but Japan, Germany, Canada for the robotics that we do on board. So we're very prepared for this kind of thing. Fortunately, what happened yesterday was not a real emergency, but we responded, in a very cautious way, which is what we are trained to do and what we have to do to protect, ourselves and the space station.
Great. Okay, well, with that, we've got a packed room here, so we'll just go ahead and start with some questions. We're going to start with media here at the Johnson Space Center first, so if you can just raise your hand and wait till you're selected and just state your name and affiliation. We'll start on the right-hand side. Robert?
Hi, Robert Perlman with SelectSpace.com with a question for both Scott and Mikhail. You're leaving Earth for a year. Is there anything that you want to still do here on Earth that you've consciously thought, I want to do this here, experience it here, and get a memory before you have to go, and will you have time to do it?
Well, for me, there really aren't specifics like that, but I'm certainly conscious of the amount of days I have left in the United States and how those last 30 days or so now that I have left here, there's a bunch of stuff I need to do that I can't do once I leave. But that's more like, logistic kind of things, not, this, I think you're looking for more of a human aspect of like things that you would do for fun, for instance. So for me, most of it's surrounding like logistics, like preparing my house and my family and things like that for me to be gone for over a year.
Okay, other questions? Go ahead, Bill.
Bill Harwood, CBS News. Let me ask Mikhail a question. Scott answered why he wanted to do this. Why do you want to do this for a full year? What was your motivation to go up in space and spend an entire year?
Ну, я не могу так сказать прямо, что я решил. Просто мне разрешили, скажем так. Меня спросили, сможешь ли ты, захочешь ли ты. Я, естественно, не стал отказываться, потому что это уникальная возможность в первый раз на Международной космической станции слетать на год. Ну и, конечно, это принести пользу. В первую очередь науке, следующим поколениям, которые пойдут за нами уже в дальние полеты. Это Марс, это Луна.
Well, I can't say exactly that I decided to go for 1 year. Actually, I was offered, and they asked me, do I want to go? And I was allowed to go. And so, of course, I said yes. It is a very unique opportunity. We have the chance to be the first to spend a whole year in the space station. And it will be of great use for future generations, for science, and for those who might fly further to Mars and to outer space.
Okay, other questions? We'll start with Eric on the front row.
Yeah. So, Scott, Eric Berger with the Houston Chronicle. I'm curious, I mean, a year is a long time, obviously. What kinds of things are you going to be doing in the evenings to kind of pass your time? Because you work a shift, you exercise for a long time, but you still have, some free time. And then do you have a way to watch the Texans games this fall?
Yeah, so what I did last time was mostly, talk to people on the Earth, email, read books occasionally, watch, a program on TV, and, like you said, watch the Texans games, and certainly I'll do that. It hasn't escaped me that I'll watch a whole baseball season, which is very long, and a whole football season, and then part of basketball and hockey, which sometimes those seem like they go more than a year because they're so long. So I wouldn't get to do that. But the one thing I'm going to do very much different than I did last time is I'm going to keep a personal journal of the experience. I'm also going to do the experiment called Journals, which shares the experience with investigators to understand better, how the psychology of the flight goes. So my evenings will be very similar to last time, with the exception of kind of keeping a personal record of the whole year in space.
Okay, and Bill, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ted. Go ahead.
Jim Oberg with NBC. You each have had already a long orbital flight. What do you remember that you discovered about yourself on those first flights that make you confident you can complete these flights? What surprised you about yourselves on that first flight? Or nothing.
I don't think anything really surprised me. What it made me confident that I'll be able to do this. Now, whether I'll be able to do it at the same pace and with the same mood and feeling the same way at the end, I hope. I don't know, but I think I was pretty consistent throughout the flight in how I dealt with my fellow crew members, folks on the ground, with regards to how I was feeling, fatigue level, things like that. And I think I'll be able to carry that through a year. My goal is one of my goals, many goals, but the first one obviously being crew safety. But one of the goals is that the first flight director we have, when he talks to Emily Nelson, so when Ron Spencer talks to Emily Nelson about how I did on the flight, they will have the same exact notes. There will be no difference between how he felt about me and how she felt about me, and I hope the rest of the crew as well.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for Aviation Week. And this is for Scott, please. When you look at the mission, a lot of the focus has been on the science and you're staying there. But when you look at all the activity, it seems like there's a lot of demand for you to work outside the station and inside to change the U.S. segment. And I'm wondering how you sort of see that as as an important part of what you're doing, or as a sort of a nice to have. Where do you sort of put that in perspective for all the things you are expected to accomplish on the mission?
We refer to that now as the reassembly of the space station. And both the assembly of the space station and now the reassembly of the space station were and is and will be designed to utilize the space station for what it was designed for, as an orbiting laboratory to do scientific research. So that's important because that's part of us reconfiguring the station to support science. So as far as level of importance, I'm not sure. The reassembly is there so we can do the science. So for me, both of them are important. I'm excited about both of them, the science and the reassembly. I've never done a spacewalk, so that's certainly interesting to me to get to do that. We didn't have any what's called stage spacewalks, EVAs, US EVAs the last time, and and it's different and it provides variety. And I think when you're up there that long, if one person was just responsible for the science, that wouldn't be a good thing, and if one person was just responsible for the operations, that wouldn't be good either. So I think it's important to share those responsibilities amongst the different crew members, and I look forward to all of it.
Okay, we're going to switch now. JSC is hosting some NASA social participants. So with that, we'll take a question from our social media folks, and we'll start here right on the left. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Liam Kennedy with ISS Above, and my question is about a non-science activity that's very important coming up, and that's the launching of my fellow British citizen, and that's Sarah Brightman. Who on the crew is going to be singing with her?
All of us.
Yeah, all of us. It'll be either all of us or none of us.
Okay, great. Second, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brenda Pike. I'm with Thomson Reuters Technology, and I'm wondering if you talked about sharing your personal journal, and is there a struggle with yourself in seeming confident in your job versus being transparent in your feelings and thoughts, especially maybe the last 6 months?
I suspect I'll be completely transparent in my feelings because I'm pretty direct. I think it's important for all explorers to know what this kind of experience is like, not just within NASA. And so I plan to be completely honest about it. Now, having said that, I haven't experienced it yet, so who knows? Maybe there's some crazy thoughts I'll have at the end that I wouldn't want to share. But I don't suspect that would be the case. So I think what you see is what you get.
How about on the side? The gentleman in the red.
Johnny Steverson, CEO of Real Space Education. Kind of going back to your personal journal, I wanted to know if there are any personal items you guys are going to take up. Family photos, Lucky Charms, those kind of things.
We can bring some personal items. As far as me bringing my own personal items, I just generally, bring a few things to help me with my daily activities, work actually. For myself, I don't really bring mementos. I look at it like, why should I have a memento of flying in space since I've flown in space? It doesn't seem to make much sense to me. But that's just me. I see things differently than other people sometimes. But so the type of stuff I would bring, like I brought a little tool pouch that I could wear on my belt that makes carrying the tools around easier, that kind of thing. And some clothing items that the program doesn't do they do a great job of supplying things, but certain things we don't have a lot of options, like certain kinds of sweatshirts and sweatpants, things like that. Certain kind of shoes for using the weightlifting device we have. So I bought a special kind of shoes that I thought would be better for that this time. But then you fly things for your family and friends and other people, like mementos, watch, pin, jewelry, things like that, and I definitely do that kind of thing. As far as pictures are concerned, we got the internet, we got email, so bringing a bunch of pictures up there isn't that critical because you can always get them later.
Thank you.
Did either of you guys want to add anything that you're flying?
About the stuff you're bringing?
Ну, Скотт правильно сказал, сейчас очень сложно что-то взять с собой, поскольку есть интернет, есть электронная почта. Нет смысла, наверное.
Well, Scott is right in saying that it's hard to pick something to take with you because you have the internet, you have email, so it's hard to pick something that you wouldn't be able to get through that.
Но тем не менее для меня у меня есть талисман.
But I do have a lucky charm.
Это небольшой сноумен, снеговик.
It's a little snowman.
Я последние 3 полета брал, моя младшая дочь мне его давала, поэтому я возьму его с собой.
I've taken it with me on my last 3 flights. My youngest daughter gave it to me, and so I'll take it along this time as well.
Все остальное, интернет, электронная почта.
Everything else, the internet and email will provide.
Mikhail?
Ну, я тут немножко different, как говорят. Я поклонник старых ценностей, интернетом, а я возьму фотографию моих родителей, которых, к сожалению, нет. Мама с папой, они летали со мной первый раз и полетят второй раз. Фотографию семьи. Они у меня в кабине висят все время.
Well, I'm a little bit different in this respect. Yes, you do have the internet, but I'm more traditional. I will take a picture of my parents with me. Unfortunately, they are no longer here with us. They flew with me in my first flight, and they will be coming back again. And I will take a picture of my family.
Very good. Okay, we have time for one more question over here. Go ahead in the green.
Hi, Kim Davis, and I'm with the NASA Social. I'm a teacher, which the whole 4th grade at Lee Scott Academy in Auburn, Alabama is currently watching. And my homeroom wanted me to ask, even young children have social media these days, or their parents show them things on theirs, and so I've given NASA Instagram accounts, I've given NASA Twitter accounts to the kids, but is there anything that you will be using social media-wise that they can use to keep up with you guys while you're there?
Well, I plan on using the same Twitter name and address or whatever that I used last time. So they could be followed on that, and also Facebook. I had a kind of a public Facebook last time, and I'll do that as well. Maybe Instagram and Vine and things like that. I haven't thought about that a whole lot. I'll have a couple weeks in Baikonur to sort out those things before launch. So that's great, though, that they can follow along, and I'll keep that in mind. That 4th graders are, I never quite considered that, but I'll keep in mind that 4th graders are following us on Twitter, and at times I will talk to the 4th graders and talk to the elementary school kids and make tweets that might interest them. So if they seem a little bit goofy, that's why.
Awesome, thanks.
All right.
Okay, with that, I think we will switch over to the phone bridge. We have a number of media tying us into the conference by phone. We'll start with Tracy Watson with USA Today.
Thank you. For Scott Kelly, with the wisdom of hindsight, is there something that you think on the second flight you'll miss that you didn't realize ahead of your first flight that would be important to you?
Something I'll miss on Earth, you mean? Obviously. You know, there were things that on my first flight that I didn't realize I would miss. So on the second flight, I know about that. Like, you know, the weather, you know, how it never changes on the space station, even though it's a pretty nice environment. I guess it's like living in Southern California. People get sick of the good weather after a while. So we have a nice environment there, but it never changes. So you do gets a little bit fatiguing. I was really looking forward to the rain last time, and then I got back to Houston. We were in a drought, and it didn't rain for 3 months. So trying to think what else with hindsight I don't know, you guys have anything to add about that? What you miss when you're in space besides the obvious things?
Миша, видишь?
Ну, в общем-то, я с тобой совершенно согласен, Скотт. Как в нашей традиционной песне, под которую нас провожают в космос, «Трава у дома». Снится нам трава у дома. Вот она снится, и вода снится, которая не летает шарами, а в которой можно искупаться. И лес, и поле. Сильно скучаешь по земле.
Well, I fully agree with you, Scott. As our song says, we dream of the grass by our home. And it's true. That's what we dream of. The water also that doesn't fly around in bubbles, but water that you can actually swim in. The forests, the fields, that kind of thing.
Ну, as for me, я уже не скучаю ни почему на земле. Поэтому я собрался 5-й раз, чтобы хотя бы немножко поскучать.
Actually, I don't miss anything on Earth, and that's why I plan to fly for the 5th time, so that I can finally get to miss something.
Nice. Okay, we'll move on to our next reporter, Miriam Kramer with Space.com.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my question. I am just curious, and this is for anybody who would like to answer it. Is there a particular site that you're looking forward to seeing out the window or out the cupola on the station? So we'd be brushing up on any photography skills in order to capture something specific.
Well, you know, the Bahamas are always beautiful from space. It's the bluest place on Earth. It's kind of, I look forward to seeing that again. Also, you know, deserts are surprisingly beautiful. As far as, you know, photography skills and things like that, what I do look forward to is trying to take pictures of the same spot on the Earth, you know, at every opportunity throughout the whole year to see the changes, you know, not only from a scientific perspective, and hopefully there is a scientific aspect to that, but also just from an aesthetic, you know, human aspect, you know, seeing how the Earth changes over years. So I do plan on identifying like one spot on each continent that we could see. You know, even Antarctica, you can kind of get a glancing blow occasionally to be able to see it. So I don't remember the sites I chose for that, with the exception of in North America. I'm going to try to get a picture of my hometown area, which is basically the New York City metropolitan, surrounding metropolitan areas, at every opportunity.
Mikhail, Gennady, any specific locations you're looking forward to?
Ну, что касается меня, у меня второе образование, мой эколог.
As for me, my second education is in ecology.
Поэтому я сейчас собираюсь заниматься очень много экологией на борту, что я делал в предыдущих полетах.
So I'll be doing a lot of ecology on station, which is what I did in my previous flights also.
И меня больше всего интересуют, конечно, места, которые подвержены большим изменениям с точки зрения техногенным процессам.
And I'm mostly interested in the areas that are undergoing major changes in technogenical processes.
Где мы очень большое оказываем влияние, порой не совсем хорошее, на нашу планету.
Also places where we affect the Earth, often in bad ways.
Это места добычи нефти, нефтяные разливы, пожары, это ледники.
These are places where we are getting oil spills, fires, glaciers.
Поэтому у меня целый лист целей таких на весь полет, который собираюсь снимать.
I have a whole list of such places for the whole flight. These are items that I plan to take pictures of.
Right. Mikhail?
Ну, я до первого полета еще с друзьями вместе поднялся на Килимаджаро, на гору.
Before my first flight, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with my friends.
Там был большой ледник.
There was a great glacier there.
И когда я полетел, я, конечно, в первую очередь попытался найти Килиманджаро, сфотографировать, как это выглядит из космоса.
And when I flew up, of course, I tried to find Mount Kilimanjaro from space to take a picture to see what it looks like from up there.
И сейчас я сделаю это обязательно во второй раз из космоса, чтобы посмотреть, что с этим ледником стало. Он потихоньку уходит. Это как бы продолжение темы Геннадия и Скотта. Это как бы продолжение экологии нашей, потому что ледник этот, он потихоньку уходит.
And of course, now when I go for the second time, I will try to find that glacier again and see if it's still there. It is going slowly, and this is a continuation of the thoughts both by Gennady and Scott. It has to do with our environment.
Okay. Next question will be from Omar Villafranca with CBS News.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a quick question. Is there something that happens in space, either visually or physically, that anyone there actually looks forward to that doesn't happen on Earth? Maybe something that gets you kind of geeked out and excited and validates why you chose this profession?
Well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's the most fun you can have, I think. Space station's a magical place. But, you know, there are negative effects on our physiology with regards to bone and muscle loss, and effects on our vision, immune system, vestibular system, things like that. So, you know, generally there aren't any positive physiological effects that we've determined yet. Maybe we'll find that out by staying on the space station for a year. Maybe we'll come back smarter. That'd be great.
You do come back a little taller.
You do grow. You do grow.
Shared this, yeah.
Yeah, you do grow when you're up there for a long time. Unfortunately, it doesn't last.
Yeah.
But it did last long enough that I could stand next to my brother and look down at him a little bit.
One little positive. Any other comments you guys want to add? No.
Ну, сложно что-либо добавить вот к тому, что сказал Скотт. В общем, все исчерпывающе. Если бы мы летели в первый раз, то, наверное, ожидали бы чего-то нового. Сейчас все уже ожидаемо и понятно.
Well, it's hard to add anything to what Scott said. Basically, he covered everything. If we were flying for the first time, we might expect something unexpected, but now we know what to expect.
You do have a better appreciation for the Earth and its fragility by looking out the window, especially on your first flight, and seeing this film over the edge of the planet that is our atmosphere. So, you know, you do get that different, you know, I think that's a positive effect you get from flying. It's a definite appreciation for how fragile our environment is.
Okay. Gennady?
Ну, я бы добавил следующее.
This is what I want to add.
Мне очень интересно направление медицинских экспериментов.
I'm very interested in the medical experiments.
Почему? Потому что я сам выступаю как объект исследования.
Because in this case, I am the subject of the research.
Это будет мой 5-й полет и почти 900 дней в космосе.
This will be my 5th flight, almost 900 days in space.
Мне очень интересно, я думаю, не только специалистам на Земле, но и для меня лично, насколько это все влияет, так сказать, на мой организм.
And I'm very interested how this will affect my own body.
It is going to be fascinating. Moving on, we have Irene Klotz with Reuters.
Hi, thank you. Continuing on that subject, I'm wondering if both Scott and Mikhail could maybe tell us what of all the various things that you expect to happen in a very long duration space flight are you kind of most concerned about or most curious about?
Well, you know, I'm hopeful that the mitigation measures we take for bone and muscle loss are effective, and so far we've had a pretty positive outcome between, our nutrition and exercise, mostly on the resistive exercise device. We can mitigate the bone loss, and you work out so much, so you generally are in better condition with regards to a muscle, your muscle mass than when you left. As far as like immune system and effects to our genetics, I'm less confident that we know enough about those things, and as well as the vision issues we've had. So, I'm hopeful that there's not a big cliff out there with regards to our ability to stay and live and work in space for longer periods of time. So I'm hopeful, but I think we're not going to know that until we've actually done it. And the Russians have done this before and have a lot of history with this, but that was a long time ago, before we had the medical technology that we do today to not only understand the effects but also mitigate them. So I think I look forward to coming back and saying, hey, I think and the data suggests that a year is no problem, but we'll have to see. The jury's out.
Yeah. Okay, and one last person from our. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Я хотел бы добавить, полагаясь на свой опыт собственный.
I want to add something from my own personal experience.
Мне кажется, в большей степени для ребят, и для Скотта, и для Миши будут важны, скажем, не какие-то физические изменения в организме.
I think it won't be the physical changes that will be most important to Scott and Mikhail.
А в большей степени будут оказывать влияние аспект психологический.
The psychological aspects will be more important. It will be more
Отдаленность от
effective.
Земли, обстановка такая, скрэм-компартмент, что называется, ограниченное количество людей, с которыми не общаются. Это очень важно для них.
Being far away from Earth, being sort of crammed, and having few people to interact with.
И, на мой взгляд, это будет самое сложное для ребят, выстоять, выдержать.
And I think that will be the most difficult for these guys to withstand that.
Мое, так сказать, личное мнение.
But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's a big factor for going into a mission like this. In fact, there are things that they do to help you, afford you family conferences, email, phone calls, all those types of things. So.
Yeah, we have a great group of people that help us with our psychological support here for the U.S. crew members in Russia, for the Russian crew members, to keep you in contact with family and provide an outlet for discussing things if you do have issues. So for me, that's the biggest challenge. I mean, people ask me what's the biggest challenge of this flight, and it's definitely the duration and keeping the level of fatigue down, enthusiasm up, energy reserves to respond to an emergency, and just your overall, mental state of mind being in a very good spot when you get to the end of this long trip.
I'm just curious, on the first mission, your first long duration mission, were you surprised at all at how much you started to look forward to those conferences and the phone calls, or was it, pretty much just day of the life and not something that was that big of a deal on the first mission?
I think I experienced what most people experience on a long duration flight, and that is, when you get, and I'm hoping it's 2/3 of the way through, but which for a 6-month flight is generally about month 4, you're kind of like, I think I've done everything I need to do here. I'm ready to come home. Hopefully that's like a 2/3 phenomenon and not a 4-month phenomenon. So, but you do kind of feel like, hey, I kind of did, I've met all my goals. We've, done this mission successfully. So I think in Russian guys pretty much experience the same. 4 months is about the perfect amount of time.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, we have one last reporter, Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Yes, hi. I'd like to ask both one-year crew members if you're taking any special health precautions in the next month, washing your hands extra so you don't get any colds or flu. And do you both have backups ready to take your place for an entire year on orbit if something were to happen to either of you?
Yeah, so I'm definitely conscious of the fact that I don't, want to get into a car accident or break my ankle running or something like that. I have started carrying the Perel in my pocket more often, washing my hands, because there's somewhat of a flu epidemic in the U.S. right now that I didn't that would be a problem. Not necessarily for launch in 2 months from now, but it would really affect our training. And our training right now, if we were to miss even just one day, would present some problems. So I am definitely conscious of that, and that's a very good question, Marcia. As far as our backups, we do have backups. They are, being fully trained, and whether they're ready to go or not, they will be trained. Whether they're ready, you would have to ask them. So I think they are kind of watching out for our safety as well. They don't want anything to happen to us either.
Okay, stand by just 1 second. We have been soliciting questions via social media, so we're going to take a break to accept some of those. Megan Sumner's been receiving those questions using hashtag AskNASA. Go ahead, Megan.
We have one from John Bright. What is the best and worst thing of being in space for all of you?
There's a lot of great things. The obvious ones are, looking at the Earth floating around, microgravity environment, that kind of thing. But for me, the best thing is working at something that's very, very challenging, ahead of time for a couple of years training for this. And then, the challenges that the space environment presents and how difficult the missions are. I think it's underestimated how hard this job is once we get into space. And then being successful at it. And, the sense of satisfaction you get from hard work and the success you have as a result of your hard work. And when I talk to kids, I tell them that that's something, you can have in whatever career field you choose, or in most, I would say, maybe not as like if you're a criminal or something, but if that was your chosen career field, but just, you choose something that challenges you, whether it's in school, work hard at it, and then be proud of yourself for your successes. I don't know if there was a two-part question, but hopefully that answers your question.
Anything to add? Go ahead, Gennady.
Полагаясь на свой опыт, я большую часть своей жизни отдал космонавтике.
Well, again, coming from my experience, and I have spent the
И мне
better
тоже
part of my
часто задавали
life
этот вопрос, что самое лучшее, что самое худшее в космосе.
in this field, and they've often asked me what is best and worst things in space.
На мой взгляд, очень сложно как-то определить, так сказать, одним штрихом.
It is very difficult to identify those two things quickly.
Я всегда отвечал на этот вопрос следующим образом.
But I've always answered it this way.
Я в космос на станцию прилетал всегда с огромным удовольствием.
I've always flown up to space and to the station with great excitement.
Работал с большим энтузиазмом.
Worked with great enthusiasm.
И с не меньшим удовольствием я оттуда улетал.
And with equal joy and enthusiasm, I left it.
Mikhail? Best and worst?
То, что касается меня, то самое лучшее, наверное, это хороший экипаж, совместимость в экипаже.
Well, the best thing is a good crew and good compatibility within the crew.
Это состояние невесомости.
It is microgravity also.
И, наверное, самое худшее – это несовместимость в экипаже.
And probably the worst thing is incompatibility within the crew.
Okay. Next question, Megan.
And then we have one on Twitter from Katie Strong. What is the most exhilarating part of traveling to the ISS?
Well, traveling to the ISS, the most exhilarating part is the first, 9 minutes or so of the flight, the launch. And then, especially in the Soyuz, that's, I think, even more exciting than maybe even landing the space shuttle is the last, 30 minutes or so when you come back. I mean, that's about as much fun as you can have anywhere. I say, if I would have hated the whole 6 months, I would have done it all again for that last 20 minutes in the Soyuz.
It's quite a testament. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll return back here to the room. Go ahead.
Suppose we tell you you're back. Now, a 2-year mission to go to Mars. Show of hands, who's ready?
Once we get back?
Once you get back.
I'm not back yet.
Okay, I'll ask you then.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll hold that question. Okay, go ahead.
Is there any family ribbing or the twin project or anything that you guys are looking forward to between you and your brother?
Maybe if we had another sibling, they would kind of give us the business over it. But no, he's very enthusiastic to, he doesn't work for NASA anymore. And it's, he thinks it's great that he can still be a participant in this. I mean, for him, it's a fantastic opportunity. Even though he doesn't get paid a whole lot to do it, he still, enthusiastically comes here and does the science and does this data collection at home. He's just he's a volunteer, and he likes the fact that he can still be involved.
Okay, go ahead.
What milestones are you most looking forward to?
I think the big ones. The other, when crew members come and go, that's, it's, even if you like everyone, it's that you're there with, which was my experience on all my flights, especially on the long duration flight. You could be having a great time with the people you're there, but, kind of when they leave, it's a change and it's nice. It's a little less hectic. And then, 2 weeks later when the new people come up, especially if it's someone who's never flown in space before, especially now with the flight day 1 rendezvous, when you see someone show up on the space station within 6 or 7 hours of them launching and never being in space before, I really look forward to that. And then the big events, the visiting vehicles, the EVAs, some of the big science that we do that's very concentrated periods of time where we do research, like with animals and stuff. That's something that I look forward to. And I think, the general, milestones of, hey, we've been here 100 days, 200, 300, holidays, birthdays. I mean, all 3 of us will have a birthday in space this time. Hopefully. Huh? Yeah, birthdays. All 3 of us will. Not all the crew members will on board while we're there, but some of us will. Those things are exciting.
Okay. And any other questions? Just raise your hand. Go ahead, Eric.
Have you guys had any special conflict resolution training as a part of this? I mean, it's a 1 year, it's a long time to be up there with someone or been given strategies to deal with that.
Specific training. We have, every few months we'll talk, and I don't know if the cosmonauts do this, but we do this here. You'll talk with the psych support team of psychologists and psychiatrists. And we also do that when we're on orbit every 2 weeks. I think these guys do. They have I know they have that same team of people. So you do talk to those guys, and I think at times we have discussed that topic as far as having specific training, like a government program on conflict resolution that maybe people that have had conflicts in the workplace would have to take as a mandatory part of their continued employment, which I'm sure exists somewhere in the U.S. government. Never had anything like that.
Okay, we have time for one last question. Sorry, Bill.
Well, along those same lines, since Mikhail said that compatibility is such a big issue, you guys didn't choose each other, so how do you guys get along?
We get along great, and I couldn't ask for a better 2 professional cosmonauts to fly with, and we're all great friends, and I look really forward to spending time in space with these guys. I'll be very sad when Gennady leaves, but he said he will be in Baikonur when we land 6 months after he departs the space station. And he says he's going to carry Misha and I out of the Soyuz like we're little babies.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Megan will take this one from social media from our followers watching along.
All right, from Twitter, Carrie Lynn wants to know, are you worried at all about the long-term side effects of spending 1 year in zero gravity? I know we touched on it a little bit, but how are you feeling about that?
The radiation is certainly a somewhat of a concern, but that's the type of thing that it's, a long-term thing. And, I don't know if you'd ever be able to point to if you ever wound up with some kind of bad cancer, whether it was actually due to that, piece of your DNA getting damaged from some kind of cosmic radiation. So it's definitely a concern, but, we do our best to mitigate that and understand that, spaceflight has risks, and that's one of them. As far as the other risks, vision, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to see when I get back. Maybe not as well. Hopefully it'll return. I had a little bit of a degradation last time, so I suspect something similar. bone loss. I think we do a good job of mitigating that, but it is a concern as you get over the age of 50. If you break your hip, it's not an insignificant deal. And we have had astronauts that have broken their hips after long duration space flight, so that's something that I'm definitely conscious of and is somewhat concerning.
All right, well, that's all the time we have today, but thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us. Of course, we all wish you well on your mission. Again, just a reminder for folks, the launch is March 27th at 2:42 p.m. Central Time here in the United States. They'll be docking to the International Space Station 6 hours later to begin this historic mission. You can follow along on their mission using all the social media channels, including Scott's Twitter at @StationCDRKelly and using the hashtag ISS 1 year. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.